Ever wondered what exactly is a company and what are its features? If we delve into the Companies Act of 2013, a company is an entity incorporated under this act or under any previous company law. But what does this mean? Well, there are two types of companies, incorporated and unincorporated. An incorporated company is a single, legal entity, separate from the individuals who constitute it. Think of it as an artificial person with its own legal rights and obligations. It's like a separate individual living in the business world, distinct from its creators or members. In contrast, an unincorporated company like a partnership is merely a collection of individuals. It doesn't have its own separate identity. It's like a group of friends who have come together for a common purpose, with no distinct identity separate from its members. Now, what's unique about a company is its independent corporate existence. This means that a company has its own separate identity, independent of its members. It's like a character in a play, distinct from the actors who play the role. A company also has a feature called limited liability. This means that the financial liability of the company's members is limited to the nominal value of the shares held by them. If the company faces financial distress, the personal assets of the members are not at risk. Another fascinating feature of a company is its perpetual succession. This means that the company continues to exist irrespective of changes in its members. Even if the members die or become insolvent, the company lives on. It's like a river that keeps flowing, regardless of the changes in its course. The company also has the ability to own, enjoy, and dispose of property in its own name, separate from its shareholders. The company's assets are its own, and not the joint or several property of its shareholders. The concept of a company is not as complex as it seems. It's simply a unique entity with its own legal standing. One of the most striking features of a company is its independent corporate existence. But what does that mean? Well, at its core, this means that a company is a separate legal entity from its members. It's like a distinct individual in the eyes of the law, separate from those who compose it. This independent existence gives a company its unique identity, and it continues to exist irrespective of the changes in its membership. This characteristic is what sets a company apart from other forms of business organizations like partnerships. Let's take a moment to delve into a landmark case that illustrates this principle quite well. Salomon v. Salomon and Company. This case took place in 1898, and it's a cornerstone in the understanding of corporate law. Mr. Salomon, the owner of a successful boot manufacturing business, incorporated his business into a limited company. The company went into liquidation, and the question arose whether the company was a separate entity from Mr. Salomon. The House of Lords held that once a company is legally incorporated, it must be treated as a separate legal entity distinct from its members, even if it's a one-man company. This case exemplifies the concept of independent corporate existence. It highlights how a company, once incorporated, has its own personality, rights, and obligations, separate from those of its members. It can own property, enter into contracts, and can sue and be sued in its own name. A member cannot claim any ownership rights over the company's assets during its existence or in its winding up, just because he holds shares in the company. This concept also protects the personal assets of the members from the company's liabilities. That means if a company is sued, the members are not personally liable, unless it's proven they acted fraudulently or negligently. So, no matter who the members are, the company stands as a separate legal entity. This principle is the bedrock of corporate law, and it's what allows businesses to take risks, grow, and innovate while providing a safety net for its members. Next up is another crucial feature of a company, limited liability. But how does it benefit the members? Let's delve into this fascinating aspect of corporate law. Limited liability, in essence, is a legal protection for a company's shareholders. This feature restricts their responsibility towards the company's debts to the nominal value of their shares or the amount they have guaranteed. This means that if a company stumbles financially, the most a shareholder stands to lose is the value of their shares. Now let's break this down a bit further. Imagine you invest in a company by purchasing shares. These shares represent a portion of the company's overall value. If the company runs into financial trouble, your liability or financial responsibility is limited to the value of those shares. Essentially, you're not personally responsible for the company's debts. This feature is a significant advantage of doing business under the corporate form of organization. It provides a safety net for investors, encouraging them to put their money into businesses without the fear of being personally liable for the company's debts. Let's say the company you invested in goes bankrupt. Because of limited liability, you won't have to sell your house or your car to pay off the company's debts. The worst-case scenario, you lose the money you invested in the company's shares, but your personal assets, they're safe. This is different from other types of businesses, like partnerships, where each partner is personally liable for the business's debts. In those cases, if the business can't pay its debts, the partners might have to dig into their own pockets. In essence, limited liability is like a protective shield for shareholders. It separates their personal finances from the financial risks associated with their investment in the company. So with limited liability, members can engage in business without the fear of personal financial ruin. It's a feature that makes the corporate form of organization a safe and attractive option for investors. And it's also a vital part of what makes a company, well, a company. With limited liability, members can engage in business without the fear of personal financial ruin. A company has what we call a perpetual succession. But what does this mean? Well, in simple terms, it signifies that a company has an unending existence. Regardless of what happens to its members, whether they leave, pass away, or even declare bankruptcy, the company itself continues to exist. This means that the company's life is not dependent on or tied to the lifespan of any of its members. It's like a river that keeps flowing, no matter how much its water changes. Now imagine a company as a ship. It keeps sailing no matter who its passengers are. Some passengers may disembark at the next port, some new ones might come on board, but the ship, the company, it doesn't stop. It continues its voyage unaffected by these changes. This is the essence of perpetual succession. Think of long-standing companies like Coca-Cola or IBM. These companies have been around for over 100 years. The people who started these companies, the original members, are no longer with us, but the companies themselves still exist. They've seen countless changes in their membership over the decades, but these changes haven't affected their corporate existence. This aspect of perpetual succession provides a company with stability and continuity. It allows for long-term planning and execution of large-scale projects that extend beyond the life of its members. It gives confidence to investors and creditors, knowing that their investment or credit won't disappear just because a member leaves or dies. Perpetual succession also has legal implications. For instance, if a member leaves the company or passes away, their shares in the company can be transferred to someone else, ensuring the continuity of ownership. In essence, a company, in the eyes of the law, is an entity with its own identity, separate from its members. It's like a person who remains the same, even though the cells in their body keep changing. So the next time you see a century-old company, remember, it's a testament to the concept of perpetual succession, a symbol of stability and continuity in the world of business. Regardless of changes in membership, a company continues to exist, ensuring business continuity. Did you know a company can own, enjoy, and dispose of property in its own name? Yes, you heard it right. A company, in the eyes of the law, is an individual entity. This separate legal entity status allows a company to hold ownership of its capital and assets. Just like a person who can buy, use, and sell property, a company can do the same. The property belongs to the company, not to its shareholders or directors. It's a common misconception that shareholders are the owners of a company's property. However, this isn't the case. Shareholders are owners of the company's shares, not its property. Let's say you own shares in a renowned company. You hold a stake in that company, but this doesn't mean you own a part of the company's office building, or its machinery, or its patents. These belong to the company as a whole. A company, being a legal person, has the capacity to own property, manage it, and dispose of it as it sees fit. This property can range from real estate and physical goods to intellectual property and financial assets. The ownership of the company's property remains with the company, irrespective of changes in its membership. This means that even if shareholders come and go, the property still belongs to the company. The company can sell, lease, mortgage, or deal with its property in any way it wants, regardless of these changes in its shareholding pattern. This concept is fundamental to understanding corporate law. The separation of a company's property from its members' property is a critical feature that distinguishes a company from a partnership or sole proprietorship. It provides a company with the flexibility to grow, adapt, and survive in the ever-changing business landscape. This separate property ownership is another testament to a company's individual legal entity status. It's a unique feature that cements the idea that a company is not just a collection of individuals, but a separate legal entity with its own rights and responsibilities. A company's property is its own, separate from its members, another testament to its individual legal entity status. Now that we've covered the major features of a company, let's quickly summarize what we've learned. Firstly, we dove into the concept of independent corporate existence. This is a fundamental trait of a company, making it a distinct legal entity, separate from its members. It has its own rights and obligations, just like a real person. The famous Salomon v. Salomon & Co. case exemplifies this principle, where the company was recognized as a separate legal entity from its owner. Next, we explored the idea of limited liability. This is a key advantage of running a business under a corporate structure. It essentially means that members are only responsible for the company's debts up to the value of the shares they hold. So if things go south, members won't have to dig into their personal assets to pay off the company's debts. It provides a safety net, encouraging entrepreneurship and risk-taking. We then moved on to perpetual succession. This characteristic means that a company has an indefinite lifespan. It continues to exist regardless of changes in membership due to death, insolvency, or other reasons. This perpetual existence is a defining feature of a company, distinguishing it from other business structures like partnerships. As the old saying goes, members may come and go, but the company can go on forever. Lastly, we discussed separate property ownership. Just like a real person, a company can own, enjoy, and dispose of property in its own name. Shareholders don't jointly own the company's assets. Instead, the company itself is the true owner of its property. This ensures stability and continuity, irrespective of changes in shareholders. Understanding these features provides a solid foundation to comprehend the functioning and benefits of a company. Whether you're considering starting your own business or studying business law, these principles are key to recognizing the unique nature and advantages of a company as a business structure.